Okay, Tina, will you read our compliance statement?
Yes. This meeting is being held in compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act with the annual notice advertised in the January 11th, 2021 Trenton Times. Notice was provided to the Hunterdon County Democrat and the Trenton Times, members on the listserv, to the department heads, the city attorney, and city engineer. And the meeting agenda was posted on the bulletin board at City Hall, the glass doors of the elevator entrance, and to the city's website at www.lambertville.nj.org. The meeting agenda provides for action items at the extent known at the time of publication. This meeting will be recorded using the Zoom meeting platform.
Thank you. Can I get a roll call?
Yes. Councilwoman Lambert,
Here.
Councilman Sanders,
Here.
Councilman Stegman,
Here.
Council President Taylor,
Here.
Mayor Fall.
Here. Bill, will you read the ordinance for the closed session? Tina, would you mind reading the ordinance for the closed session?
Authorizing a closed session at the March 18th, 2021 session of the Liverpool City Council to discuss attorney-client issues related to contracts and acquisition of property pursuant to NJSA 10-4-12B.
Okay, great. Can I get a motion to pass this resolution?
So moved.
That's Councilwoman Lambert for the first. Any seconds?
Second.
Council President Taylor for the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we'll be in closed session from 6 to 7 and open up for our public hearing at 7. So I'll see everybody in the closed section breakout. It's nice to see your face, Councilman Sanders.
There we go. I'll have to work on, I'm not sure what happened.
Yeah, I don't know what happened either.
I've never had that before.
I just want to take a moment to apologize to members of the public who have been waiting on us here. We had a slightly longer than anticipated closed session, and I am sorry for the burn on your time. We're just waiting for our two other members of council, and we'll go from there. Can we make sure that the members of council aren't having any technical issues here?
Yes, I'll check the attendees as well.
Thank you. Has anyone heard from Councilman Stegman if he's having technical issues?
I have not heard.
I have not heard. Hold on.
I'll give
No.
it.
All right, I'm gonna get started with the stuff. So, and hopefully Councilman Stegman will log on in between now and then. Can I get a roll call?
Councilwoman Lambert,
Here.
Councilman Sanders,
Here.
Council President Taylor,
Here.
Mayor Fall.
Here, can I ask everybody to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd ask everybody to remain standing for a moment of silence in honor of our troops serving at home and abroad, as well as everyone serving on the front lines of COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you. Okay, we have a bunch of meeting minutes that we need to approve. Can I get a motion to approve the meeting minutes for February 18th for the voting and close, February 25th for the special and the close, and then March 2nd for the working session and the closed session?
So moved.
Councilwoman Lambert for the first,
Second.
Council President Taylor for the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the next is the consent agenda. We have resolutions 41, 45, 53, 55, 56, 57, and that's it. Are there any questions from the council regarding any of those resolutions?
Excuse me, Mayor, do we have 54? I'm working from an older copy of the agenda.
Yes, sorry, that's a resolution 54
Okay,
on here.
okay. No,
Okay,
no
so in 58 is not part of the consent agenda.
Give me 1 second here. That is, I have resolution number 57. Oh, I see. Resolution number 58 appears a little smaller on mine,
Yeah.
but yes, resolution number 58 is also there.
Okay.
So I'm happy to reread that before a motion if everyone would prefer.
Yeah, would you mind, please?
Sure.
Oh,
Thank
there
you.
it is. There it is.
It's resolution number 41, resolution number 45, resolution number 53 through 58.
Okay.
Mayor, you're
Yeah, I
holding it 45.
Oh, there's 58.
Yeah, it's just
Okay,
a
you
little,
don't have to
a little
read it.
small.
I see it now.
45 is for Deanna's, and that's going to be, that's a public hearing will be held at the March 25th special session.
That's resolution 55.
45.
45. Oh, so we're pushing resolution number 45. All right. One last time, guys. The consent agenda includes resolution number 41, resolution 53 through 58. Any questions about those resolutions outside of their numbers? Hearing none, can I get a motion to pass those resolutions in the consent agenda?
So moved.
Councilman
Second.
Copeland for the first, Councilman Sanders for the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. We're moving to the bills list. Was a bills list included in our packet?
Yep.
Yes, it's in the
Mhm.
Google packet, Mayor.
Okay.
Mhm.
Are there any questions regarding the bills list?
I just had one. The sweatshirt one. What was that? Just made me giggle.
That was for new uniforms for our Department of Public Works. No.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, can I get a motion to pass the bills list?
So
So
moved.
moved. Oh,
Councilman
Second.
Burke for the first, Councilwoman Lambert for the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Moving on to ordinance for first reading. A bond ordinance to reappropriate balances in bond accounts for the purpose of funding engineering for 2021 road projects. This is will include some milling and paving and general reconstruction. Does anybody have any questions about this?
Is the cost of the work that's anticipated here to be completely covered by the municipal aid program grant?
So the cost, that's a good question. The cost for this, the municipal aid program covers everything except for a certain amount of engineering. The reappropriation is to cover the cost of the engineering.
I see
So
what you're saying. Okay.
yes, there's no new bond, no new debt being issued for this road project. I think that's the sort of key here. Any questions? Hearing none. Can I get a motion to hear on first reading ordinance number 5, 2021, a bond ordinance to reappropriate balances in the bond accounts for the purpose of funding engineering for the 2021 road projects?
So moved.
Councilwoman Lambert for the first,
Second,
Council President Taylor for the second. Tina, would you mind giving us a roll call vote?
Sure. Councilwoman Lambert,
Yes.
Councilman Sanders,
Yes.
Councilman Stegman,
Yes,
Council President Taylor,
yes,
Mayor Fall.
Yes. Ordinance number 6, 2021. This is an ordinance to amend the Lambertville City City Code 2014, Chapter 3, Human Rights Council, amending the requirements for membership. This was a request made by members of the Human Rights Council so that they could have a more representative membership group for the work that they're going to be doing in the coming years. We worked with them on this ordinance. The changes are relatively minor, but would allow them help them in their goal of ongoing diversity for in experience for the board. Are there any questions from the council on this ordinance?
I have a quick question. I see that I think it's a great idea to have a student from South be involved with this process. I think that, their experience level of how we're trying to be inclusive and sensitive to bullying of all students. So I think having a representative from that system would be really a great asset to the council. I don't know if we have to think about, well, what age, what grade, but I think the concept is really a great idea. Where I do have an issue is about putting somebody on the council that's not a resident, and I don't know the thought process behind that.
I can tell you a little bit about that. The thinking, and I'm not sure who else might be on the call, and make a comment later, but there are several people who've been committed members of this or a few people who are committed members of Human Rights Council, but are no longer are residents, but are residents of nearby towns. And so there's part of an idea of thinking about that there's regional activity going on that we want to capture, and we want to make room for people who don't necessarily live in town, but work in town, care about town, and have been part of this process. But I think the key thing is acknowledging that there's work going on that our municipal boundaries don't hold in.
I have a question or two. So along that line,
Councilwoman Lambert, just really quickly before I allow you to give your answer, I just also wanted to answer Councilman Stegman's question.
oh, I'm sorry.
Not at all. I would also note here that we have a couple of folks who sit on other boards in our town that have been longtime serving members of some of our boards that don't live in the area. Key amongst them would be the Recreation Commission. Jim Troutman lives in West Amwell, grew up in Lambertville, and has sat on that board for more than 15 years because of his commitment to the Art Ely Field project and the Ramblers. So where that has been sort of an understood And then also, for the planning board, statutorily required members often don't live in town. For instance, our public works director, some of the class 2 and class 3s. So there's precedent in town, which was my initial reaction to this, is that this doesn't need to be codified in an ordinance. However, the Human Rights Commission did feel that it was important for their particular ordinance to codify that rule.
Okay. You're done? Okay.
Yeah.
So would you see the scope of the work of the Human Rights Council expanding to include those regional municipalities?
I think that's really a question for the Human Rights Commission. They set their scope. Our role here is in terms of appointment, and obviously there's some executive direction given to each of our commissions, but I think the Human Rights Commission has taken on quite a bit more with its new chair in the last year and a half. And, if their project starts to span more regionally for the good of the Lambertville community, I think that that's worthwhile.
Okay. So the other thing about this change is the way it reads, and I know this is a little, out there, but in theory, we could have 5 private non-resident members of the Human Rights Council. And I'm wondering if the language wants to be maybe a little more specific. Do we want to say 1 non-resident, or not to exceed, a majority of the private residents? Or, the other thing that came to mind was there's no geographic specification. And you could end up with a person who lives on the other side of the country. Is that something that we're, open to? If you have a resource that you're really anxious to retain, I'm just saying, do you want to keep it a little more specific and say there's some geographic region, or some, within the county, or within a certain mile radius? Also, to kind of put a limit on the number of non-resident members.
So I think it's an interesting point, and I'm willing to hear from other members of council if they feel that that change should be made. My note to that would be that all appointments are approved by the council at the beginning of the year. And so rather than specify something in particular in this ordinance, rather ensuring that as things change, right, if there is some sort of resource, for instance, that we want to maintain on the council that does 90% of their time in California in 15 years, right, rather than trying to fit all of those potential options into a law, instead to lean on what we know to be true, which is members of council of the city of Lambertville are diligent and will look through each of our appointments and consider them within reason for geographic and general interest for each of the boards. Councilman Sanders?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that the advice and consent process will help regulate this. I'm certainly going to have a preference for residents of the city. I think your example of Mr. Troutman on the Rec Commission is a great one. He's donated an incredible amount of time and energy to the community and is from here. And if we said 1 and it turned out that there was 2 great people in the Human Rights Council, then as I say, I think the advice and consent process will help order our interests. If we try to get too prescriptive, I worry about blocking us out sort of statutorily from something that may be a good idea. I agree with you, though, Councilwoman Lambert, that it does make sense to have people from here, and that's certainly going to be my preference in voting. But if there are folks that are outside the city limits, then and it makes sense, I certainly would support that. I also just wanted to say that I agree with Councilman Stegman. Having different age cohorts representing something like human rights is important. If we have a bunch of 40, 50, 60 something year olds. It doesn't serve our interests well. We need to hear from folks, and I think it's a great idea to get kids involved. So if we have candidates from the South and there's a good role for them, and I do support that.
I think, it's interesting too. I couldn't agree more. I was glad to see that provision that they recommended in their ordinance. I do think it's also important to note here for Councilman Lambert that, now over the course of the last several years, at least during my mayorship, I've tried to include the council in the appointments process a lot earlier. So that it's not just the consent, but really the advice side that we've been leaning on. In fact, Council President Nacero led the appointments process rather than the mayor leading the appointments process. I hope that is an ongoing policy change that is maintained after my mayorship.
Well,
Thank you.
I would just, I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead. I just wanted to add, I didn't say it, but I also agree that having a student from the school district is a really great idea. It so much benefit in both directions, and I'm glad to see it in the language.
And if I might, I think the process of that you're doing a pre-screening for appointments to certain boards. I just think that the council would, I personally would not want to vote no on somebody in a public meeting that I didn't have chance to truly vet. I don't think any council person here is comfortable saying no on the beginning of the year. If there's someone who comes on any of the boards, it's just not this. We're not just talking about Human Rights Council. So I like the process that you set up to kind of pre-screen that you've been doing, but then again, I'm concerned about, if that process doesn't happen going forward, then it puts us in a really interesting position to have to publicly vote no if somebody's name comes up.
Well, I'm sure whomever will be the next mayor, you'll be able to hold them accountable for a more rigorous appointments process. Are there any other comments on the ordinance as it stands? Any questions?
Yeah,
Okay.
there was just one thing that the Human Rights Council asked for, and that was regarding citizenship. We currently don't have that as a requirement, and they wanted us to mention in this that it was not necessary to be a citizen. And I did send that off to the city attorney late today for him to comment. That might be the only change to the language.
I'm not sure that we are allowed to ask for citizenship status before, nor would I be comfortable asking about citizenship.
The idea is not about asking, it's about just making sure the Human Rights Council wants to make a statement in its founding document, or a guiding document, I should say, that citizenship is not a consideration. So it has nothing to do with asking, are you or are you not? Simply says that we will under no circumstances ask because we don't care and it's not required. I think that's the thinking.
Yeah, there's also I've heard this. There's also a little paragraph that kind of like talks about non-discrimination in any protected class, and then, there's that whole verbiage that's already there. That if you want to find it and put it in it, I'm fine with that too, and not have to ask it, because it'll state in the new ordinance itself that it is to show how inclusive it is. So I understand Council President Taylor's point as well.
Okay. Can I ask for a motion to pass upon first reading the ordinance at hand? That's sorry, give me 1 second here. Ordinance number 06. An ordinance to amend the Lambertville City Code 2014, Chapter 3, Section 17.4, Human Rights Council appointments, compensation terms, and vacancies, which I accidentally almost read as vaccines.
On my mind too, man.
On my brain there. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Council President for the first,
Second,
Councilwoman Lambert for the second. Can I get a roll call vote, Tina?
Yes. Councilwoman Lambert,
yes.
Councilman Sanders,
Yes.
Councilman Stegman,
I'm going to vote no. I'm not in total agreement of having, I don't think the case has been made or put forward about having someone who's not a resident on this particular board at this particular time. So I'm voting no on this one.
Council President Taylor,
Yes.
Mayor Fall.
Yes. Okay. Our next ordinance is ordinance number 7. That is an ordinance to adopt the rules and regulations of the Lambertville Police Department. I know that we have Lieutenant Brown here.
Mayor,
Um,
actually,
Mayor? I don't believe this requires council action.
Oh my gosh, you're absolutely right. I'm sorry about that. Okay, so we'll move on then to, it actually says right here, this doesn't require council action. Sorry about that, guys. Let's move on to ordinance number 8. This is an ordinance to amend the Lambertville City Code 2014, chapter, oh my gosh, 14, stormwater management, reviewed and recommended by the Environmental Commission, the city engineer, the city planner, and can I get I'm sorry, did somebody have an amendment on my Roman numerals are less than?
Yes, it's 19.
Thank you.
XIX is 19.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so are there any questions or comments regarding this ordinance? I'll start by just saying this has been thoroughly reviewed by our both by our planner, our engineers, and several members of the community that are specialists in flooding and stormwater management. These changes are required by the DEP because of a change in regulation at the state level. We tried to split the baby here, Solomon style, to ensure that we were really getting at the penumbras of the regulatory goals of the state, but still getting to just not having any onerous rules for members of our community doing, minor construction, facility rehab, etc. So with that, are there any questions?
I'd just like to thank the committee, the commission and the engineer and the planner for working on this. And when I reviewed the new ordinance, they actually, at the end of the scope of the ordinance, they included the reasons why they were suggesting these changes, and that rather than, read the ordinance word for word, but they actually called out what the new parts were, and that was really helpful. And I think it's a great idea. So I thank the volunteers for doing that.
Some of them were paid, I will say.
And the paid staff.
I do want to call out really quickly Emily Goldman, who did an incredible amount of back work on this. This was something that I generally tried to avoid because of its really specific technical nature, and she helped us drag this over the finish line.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Hearing none, can I get a motion to adopt on first reading ordinance number 8, 2021? I'm not going to read it again because I'm already embarrassed that I read those Roman numerals wrong.
So moved.
Councilman Stegman,
Second,
Councilwoman Lambert for the second. Can I get a roll call?
Yes. Councilman Lambert,
yes.
Councilwoman Lambert, Councilman Sanders,
Yes.
Councilman Stegman,
Yes.
Council President President Taylor,
Yes.
Mayor Fall.
Yes. Okay, we're moving into our public hearings for our various ordinances.
Excuse me,
Or-
Mayor, you have the ordinance number 9, which is the landscape ordinance for the land use.
Thank you. Everybody's got to keep me on my toes tonight. Ordinance number 9, this is an ordinance to amend the Lambertville Land Use Ordinances, Section 510, landscaping as recommended by the Planning Board at the March 3rd, 2021 session. This is another big shout out to our volunteers. The Lambertville Goes Wild and a couple of outstanding members from the Recreation Commission did some really serious work on putting in some edits to this ordinance to ensure that we were pushing native plants and making sure that we have the right kind of biological diversity for the types of animals and insects that live in our little slice of the world. And so this is an opportunity for, as new construction, new non-residential, rehabilitation happens, that we are encouraging local biodiversity, the right kind of local biodiversity. So we will hear this ordinance, and then after we do the public hearing, then this actually goes back to the planning board, and the planning board will vote on it one more time to ensure that it's consistent with the master plan. So there will be a public hearing at our next meeting, and then another public hearing at the planning board. So if anybody wants to get there, there will be plenty of time for public comment on this particular ordinance change.
Just, one quick note, I think that the Shade Tree Commission also took a sort of a look at this as well.
Yes, you're right. But I do want to specifically call out Marion Borge, who has done the yeoman's work on this.
Yeah, she sure did.
And the way it was presented, once again, was very detailed with photographs at the end. They were very clear about how they were approaching this, and kudos to the volunteers and or paid professionals who may have worked on this as well. It is just a perfect way to show how committed we are to the environment in which we live in. So I thank them and for bringing this forward.
Okay, great. So can I get a motion to pass ordinance number 9, 2021?
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Sanders for the first, Councilman Stegman for the second. Can I get a roll call?
Councilwoman Lambert,
Yes.
Councilman Sanders,
Yes.
Councilman Stegman,
Yes.
Council President Taylor,
Yes.
Mayor Fall.
Yes. Okay, now we can move on to the public hearings for ordinances in their second reading. I'll start with ordinance number 1, 2021, an ordinance to amend the Lambertville City Code dumpster permit. Just to clarify, this has nothing to do with our third can program, which we're still working with the third can working group on. This is specifically about functionally changing the way in which we permit and charge folks who have dumpsters on the street to ensure that and to discourage people from leaving dumpsters on the street for too long and causing parking crunch. So with that, are there any questions or comments from the council regarding this change? Great, hearing none, can I get a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Councilman Sanders for the first,
Second.
Councilwoman Lambert for the second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, are there any questions or comments from the council? Excuse me. Are there any questions or comments from the public regarding this ordinance?
I see no hands raised.
Okay, we gave that the good old fashioned college try. Can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved?
Councilman Sanders for the first,
Second.
Council President Taylor for the second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Can I get a motion to adopt ordinance number 1, the ordinance to amend the Lambertville City Code 2014 dumpster permit upon second reading?
So moved?
Councilman Sanders for the first,
Second.
Councilman Stegman. Can I get a roll call?
Councilwoman Lambert,
Yes.
Councilman Sanders,
Yes.
Councilman Stegman,
Yes.
Council President Taylor,
Yes.
Mayor Fall.
Yes. Okay. Ordinance number 2. This is an ordinance of the City of Lambertville, County of Hunterdon, State of New Jersey, establishing regulations for the award of public contracts to political contributors. This is casually known as a pay-for-play ordinance, and some municipalities have them, some don't. This is this would be the adoption of our first pay-for-play ordinance, and I think in previous discussions that we had in working sessions, this is a relatively strict pay-to-play ordinance, but I think all for the better. Are there any questions or comments from the council?
I do have one question. The way, okay, I understand that if an individual or business makes a contribution, they're out of, they can't have a contract if they make a political contribution. Upon adoption of this ordinance, is there some kind of window where, after the ordinance is adopted, if a business makes a political contribution, is there a period of time where they can wait before they become again eligible for getting a contract? Or is it just you've made a contribution, you're out?
Yeah, so if you look in the agenda and you look at 2-13.1 A at the very end, I'm sorry to get have you pull that out, but
No, I have it in front of me, so thank
okay,
you.
very good, very good. It has a temporal quality to this. So section A is the prohibition as to the city, and it provides at the very end there, you'll say within 1 calendar year immediately preceding the date of the contractor agreement.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, section
Okay.
B also has a component that deals with the entity, and that deals with sort of like the period of the negotiation of a contract. So there's an application to the city, and then there's an application to the entity in a way.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions from the council?
Just one note, Mayor. I got an email right beforehand, just in case anybody else is confused. The language that sort of set this up, you could read it as this is amending an existing pay-to-play ordinance that we have. But I think as you clearly know in the beginning here, that this is brand new. We do not have, this is not amending an existing city pay-to-play ordinance. This is where we were starting from scratch here.
Great. Okay, can I get a motion to open the public hearing?
So move.
Councilman Stegman,
Second?
Councilman Sanders? All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Okay. If anybody has a question, they can raise their hand. Okay. Seeing no hands, can I get a motion to close?
So moved?
Councilman Sanders,
Second.
Council President Taylor, all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, can I get a motion to pass on second reading the ordinance number 2, the ordinance to amend the Lambertville City Code 2014 pay-to-play ordinance?
So moved?
Councilman Sanders for the first, as it was his legislation, Councilwoman Lambert for the second. Can I get a roll call?
Councilwoman Lambert,
Yes.
Councilman Sanders,
Yes.
Councilman Stegman,
Yes.
Council President Taylor,
Yes.
Mayor Fall.
Yes. Okay, our next is ordinance number 3, 2021, a multi-purpose bond ordinance to fund the equipment upgrades for vehicles owned by the city of Lambertville in the amount of $33,500 plus bond fees. These are emergent issues that cannot wait until our budget process to pass. These are just the facts, the most important vehicle upgrades that we need, so that we can continue to provide service. And, we'll come back to the council upon adoption of our budget with a full capital budget for the year, which will include some other annual vehicle maintenance and upgrades. This is just the stuff that's extremely emergent. Are there any questions from the council? Okay, hearing none, can I get a motion to go into the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Sanders, Councilman Stegman, all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Again, raise your hand if you have any questions or comments regarding this bond ordinance.
Hand raised.
Okay, seeing none, can I get a motion to close?
So moved.
We all just
Second.
love that public hearing so much. Okay, I'm sorry, that was Councilman Sanders. I didn't see the second.
Second.
Go ahead, Joe.
Councilman Taylor for
Yeah,
the second.
Whoever.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Can I get a roll call?
Councilwoman Lambert,
Yes.
Councilman Sanders,
Yes.
Councilman Stegman,
Yes.
Council President Taylor,
Yes.
Mayor Fall.
Yes. Okay, final ordinance for public hearing. This is an ordinance to amend the Lambertville City Code 2014, Chapter 7, Section 47, parking restricted for the use by handicapped persons to add handicap parking in front of 40 Delaware Avenue. Before we open this up, just a quick reminder to everybody that we did have both our Public Works Director as well as the Lieutenant in charge, Lieutenant Brown, review that site to ensure that it wasn't going to create any parking issues. Are there any questions from the council? Hearing none, can I get a motion to open public hearing?
So moved.
Councilman Sanders,
Second.
Councilwoman Lambert, you got one in there? All right, all in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any questions
Aye.
about this parking space? Okay,
No hands are raised.
thank you, Tina. Can I get a motion to close?
So moved.
Councilman Sanders,
Second.
Councilman Stegman. Can I get a roll call?
Councilwoman Lambert,
Yes.
Councilman Sanders,
Yes.
Councilman Stegman,
Yes.
Council President Taylor,
Yes.
Mayor Fall.
Yes. Okay, so we just have some quick council updates and then we'll move into the public hearing. We are, as I'm sure everybody has noticed, we've been deep in our executive sessions, discussing contract for the acquisition of the Clausen property. We are going to be having a special session this, I'm sorry, Tina, can you give me the date? I think it's March 25th?
The 25th.
March 25th, to introduce the bond ordinance for the acquisition of that site. We will then have the public hearing for that bond ordinance, I believe April 22nd or April 20th. Sorry, I don't have that calendar up. So we will be having a third session this this month in order to introduce that bond ordinance to move forward on the potential acquisition. That's my only update as it stands now. We'll have, we'll make sure that the community advisory team is on that call, and we'll be going through a presentation with multiple members of our team, including environmental. That we'll have a brief presentation on the environmentals, presentation on potential site use, and we will then introduce that bond ordinance and have our public hearing in late April. So that's my only update for the council at this time. I'll move to Councilwoman Lambert. Any updates from the recreation team?
Oh, yes, excuse me. Yes, several updates. Work is continuing on the capital projects, and there's work going on in Cavallo Park to repair broken equipment, work on the Ely Field Bridge, improvements and lighting repairs. The LPS school garden work will be commencing shortly. Actually, the technical term was ASAP, as discussed in the meeting. I didn't get a date, but that was what it was. And there will be a second Saturday series that kicks off on March 27th with a Find the Bunnies scavenger hunt. I mean, how cute is that? So the Parks, the Recreation Committee is organizing that, and they'll be doing a number of activities on the second Saturday. Summer camp will be held. It will be 6 weeks. I believe it starts the 26th of June. And then as far as the green team goes, this kind of
I'm
hits.
sorry, Councilwoman, do you mind if I just ask you a couple of questions here?
Sure.
I know this
Sorry.
lighting project has been going on, has sort of been ongoing for almost 10 months now. Do they have a recommendation? And if not, can we get back to the rec team on when the lighting project is going to be finished? This was a particular request from members of the Hispanic community in particular to increase the lighting in the field.
Right. My understanding from our last meeting, and I'm looking at my notes, was that the materials have all been purchased and the work will be completed within the next 2 weeks. And that was as of a week ago. I don't have a specific date, but it sounds pretty imminent. And that lighting, those lighting repairs do not include the football lights. The football. Yes. Okay. So, okay. Any other questions?
I think that was my only one. Are there any questions from the council regarding our the Recreation Commission?
Just one note. I wonder if because I fully support the lights in the basketball court, and I know the Hispanic community had requested that. I think we technically, our parks are closed at dusk or something like that.
Dusk, I think.
Yes, I wonder if we need to change our rules a little bit to allow for participation. I don't know. It's something to take a look at.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the ordinance on when the parks are closed. If they are closed at dusk, I think we have a very lenient
enforcement
on that. But it may be good to codify those rules so that neighbors aren't concerned about late night sort of ambient noise.
Yeah. I mean, we have lights for we have football, Friday night, lights for football and stuff, but it just occurred to me. I don't know why, but we may want to
Councilwoman Lambert, can I ask you to work with Cindy and Tina to get the ordinance for our park opening, and we may need to review that.
To make sure that that we don't have to turn them off at dusk when we just paid to have them fixed.
Put in there, yeah.
Might be worth considering.
Yeah.
It does say dusk to dawn.
I'm sorry, Cindy?
It does say dusk to dawn.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
All right, so let's why don't we have Councilwoman Lambert, if you wouldn't mind taking this back to the Recreation Commission so that they can make recommendations on timing, and then we'll open that ordinance back up next month.
I'll send Ben, I'll send you the ordinance.
Okay, thank you. That would be great.
Sorry to make work there, but I just,
Yeah, it's all good.
I'd love to have another public hearing, a couple of more public hearings like we had tonight.
just trying to help, Mayor.
Do you want a green team or you want
Yes,
ready to move on the green team? Okay. So the big thing for green team is Earth. We're not having an Earth Day. We're having an Earth Month in Lambertville. So that's a great thing. There's all kinds of activities planned. It's collaborative across multiple, well, the green team is a collaborative team, but it's the activities are collaborative with the Environmental Commission, Parks and Recreation, and the library. Lambertville Goes Wild, the Acme Screening Room. There will be on the city page, there's a /Earth Month, one word, page that can give you details about all of the activities that are coming up. And I know people are working very hard on that. So that's something to look forward to.
Great. Thank you so
Okay.
much. Councilman Sanders, you want to go next?
Yeah, just very, very briefly here. First on, we did the pay to play, but the marijuana ordinance. So if you recall, the governor signed legislation to allow for to sort of legalize marijuana. The law did provide for the ability of municipal entities to engage in some zoning to address how they want to address businesses. We have until August 22nd. We've gotten some really good, sometimes it pays to move a little bit slowly here. But we got some really good input from the League of Municipalities, our attorney, Mr. Opal, our planner, and a couple other sources. So we have some really good background materials so we don't have to start from scratch. And I've reached out to the committee. We're hoping to get together in the next 2 weeks to work through some of that. And then secondly, on the Pennies pipeline, our committee is next meeting next week. I think it's the 23rd. You know, we're going to talk about, we keep trying to think of different ways to engage the public. We had some interviews of some key stakeholders and experts that we've done Facebook Live on, and they're posted on the city's website. Sue Begent was our David Frost, if you will, and did a great job with her interviewing. We are looking to get all the CAPs engaged in sort of a collective effort. And that's sort of, I think we're going to be talking mostly about next week. We did have one setback. The Supreme Court is going to hear a case, it's an appeal from the Third Circuit about the ability of the state of New Jersey and it's how eminent domain is exercised. The Biden administration sort of followed the Trump administration's lead on that sort of interpretation of law. So they've weighed in, the Solicitor General, I think it probably is weighed in with some briefing to the court. It was a disappointment, certainly to a lot of folks. So I'm sure we'll talk about that at the committee. And I know some bodies, I know Bonnie Watson Coleman, I think the freeholders here in Hunterdon County, and many of others have sort of reacted to criticize the Biden administration for that stance anyway.
I'll take the familial shout out for the work that Congresswoman Coleman is doing with the FERC committee. I do know that there's some discussion. I have a potential inside track on there being some discussion about changing FERC regulations to ensure that a more diligent study is done of the surrounding area before pipelines like the Pennies are approved, sort of rubber stamped by FERC. And so I'm happy to keep the team updated on that as I hear more around the House.
Yeah, that would certainly be helpful. The just to be clear, the Supreme Court cases around the FERC's ability to grant condemnation and whether New Jersey has, I think, 30 or 40 sites where they have ownership rights in land, and it's whether the FERC has the ability to sort of tell New Jersey what it can do there. So, but we'll report back out after our committee meets next week.
Okay, great. Thank you. Councilman Stegman, I'll be honest here that I woefully missed a meeting on our Hunterdon zoning ordinances. So would you mind updating us on what our status is? I know the next step as I recall, was that we were working to set up public hearings in both of the central business districts to make some recommendations. Can you talk to us a little bit about what the zoning, where we are on this project?
Sure. Emily, the planner, and I met with zoning officer. Emily and I have had a couple of conversations since that time. I also reached out to an applicant who has had a challenging time getting their particular business off the ground, and that was great insight for me to delve a little deeper and see where this particular applicant was really held up. What we're Emily and I are working on right now is to cement the timeline backwards to meet a goal of being able to present this to council. I'll touch base with Emily tomorrow to see if she's had any opportunity to think about the best way to approach this. The conversation that we both had with the zoning officer and that I've had with Emily will put us on a really good track to make it possible for someone to come into the city and know that we're business friendly, which is one of the goals of this the changes that we're looking into making. So
Yeah, Councilman, I'm a little confused if you could help me here.
Sure.
I think the original goal was to have this reviewed by council and introduced in September, and that would give us enough time for the public meetings. That timeline was created by Emily and is actually, I believe, a part of the grant. So is there a new timeline for this work?
I'll have to check with Emily and let you know.
Okay. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
because I was under the impression the timeline, we had already done the work of sort of working backwards to introduce the ordinance, and that the next step was having the conversation with business owners.
Yeah, well, that was the plan. And I'll just check with Emily to see where she's at with that as well.
Okay. And again,
And I will let you know.
yeah. Well, I'm happy to work with you as we start to have those public meetings.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I know this is already something that Frenchtown has implemented and has really helped their process and stopping it from gumming up the works in our the planning and zoning boards.
Understood.
Okay, Councilwoman Taylor.
I don't have any updates for the Human Rights Council. We've discussed that earlier. The other thing, and Cindy's been helping me with this, we've gotten several questions from residents about what's going on with electric bills and how things are changing with the community aggregation. And so we are going to schedule a representative who can explain this better than I can to come to an upcoming meeting, just so people are clear what's changing when and how it affects their bills.
Great. I really appreciate you working on that. Okay, so just a couple of quick announcements and then we'll open for a general public hearing. The street sweeper is suspended through March 31st. It's been too cold to run the sweeper, requires water. General shifting of the temperature right now hasn't made it conducive for us to start. So we'll be working with Lester and the team to ensure that when the street sweeper starts, that we are noticing members of the community so that they are not shocked by a ticket, but instead gets a week of notices that the street sweeper will be up and running. And then the other thing that I wanted to mention is that in conjunction with the Lambertville Public Library and a close connection of mine at Penn's Andrea Mitchell School for Arts and Sciences, there's going to be a forum called Race and Politics, Check Your Privilege, Perspectives on the Politics of White Identity. And they actually have some incredible speakers coming who've written short essays, are going to have a lively discussion. And then two of the moderators of that panel are actually going to come to Lambertville via Zoom, of course, and have a more Lambertville centered conversation afterwards to continue our community work of thinking about race and identity in our civic world here. So that link is up on the website. We'll be sending it out in an update so that everybody has the link for, so the essays are up already. The Zoom link will be available. It will be free of charge to members of the Lambertville community to attend. And I would highly recommend it. I think it's going to be a really rousing and interesting conversation. And then the follow-up conversation on that, I think, should be really interesting for members of our community. So I'll hope that you'll join us. Besides that, are there any other public announcements from members of the council? Hearing none, then let's open for general public comment. If anybody has any questions, they can raise their hands. Oh, good. I was worried this thing was broken. Tina, will you allow our first speaker to speak?
Stephen, please say your full name and address into the record, then please proceed with your comment or question.
Yeah, it was too quiet of a night for you guys, so I figured somebody had to comment. By the way,
Excuse me, Mr.
evening.
Harris, can you please just state your full name and address?
okay, sir.
Thank you.
Stephen Harris, 42 Perry Street. Good evening, everybody. Question, we did a great job with the streets paving. They looked wonderful. George Street looked wonderful. And now Skoda is digging them all up again. So I'm just curious, is Skoda gonna come back and repave the streets?
Stephen, appreciate your question. This has been giving me quite a few gray hairs just on my left.
I can imagine.
So just to give a little bit more of a robust answer than you're asking for, we had been in constant contact with Elizabethtown Gas, with the water company, to make sure that everybody got their road work done prior to us paving this road.
Yeah.
And we had about 2.5 months of a nicely paved road, and then it was all down there.
Yeah.
So you can imagine my frustration. When we heard about the scope of this project, we had a series of construction meetings, including the water company, to ensure that this won't happen again on these streets. To answer your actual question and not just sort of talk about my own personal frustration with this project, when I became mayor in 2019, we actually made an amendment to our road opening permit. And so it is required that when you open the road that you pave it curb to curb. So it will be as part of the rules when they do projects like this from now on, or from then on, in the city of Lambertville, you pave curb to curb. So you will get a brand new paved road again. That doesn't stop my internal rage, but it does answer the question that yes, we will get a newly paved road at the end of this project. However, I will warn members of the community who are basically looking from Cherry Street all the way down to Jefferson, that this project is extensive and it is going to take a while. So don't expect a new paved road in the next several weeks.
Oh,
Mayor-
that's fine. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. Yes, Councilman Sanders.
I've seen a map. I can't remember whether it's on our website or whether the utilities sent it out that sort of showed the city with a red line as to which streets were going to be done. Have we posted that anywhere, or do you know what I'm talking about?
I do know that we did post it. I don't know where.
Okay.
It
That's
is
just,
available to the public if you can find it.
Yeah.
There's a link to our website.
I wonder maybe in the Lambertville Matters, we could republish that next time we do that or something.
Yeah,
So-
Tina, can I ask you to take a note of that for our next Thursday meeting?
And maybe note that upon conclusion, we're going to do curb to curb paving for the folks that aren't watching here.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the public?
I currently don't see any other hands.
Okay, I'm sorry, Councilman Stegman, go ahead.
I just have based on what you said, do you know if there are plans that Church Street between Main and Franklin is going to be paved, since the new construction has cut into that street for the townhouses? It's got nothing to do with what we're doing on George Street, but it's just
I'm sorry, the new townhouses.
on Church Street.
Cindy, did they request a road opening permit?
Not yet, but we're holding $30-some thousand in a cash bond for that. And I know that they're anxious to get that finished. So I think it's all weather permitting.
There
They
are,
will be done soon.
Well, they already opened the road and patched over it, so.
Right, but when you patch, you have to give it some time for settling
Right.
before they put the final coat over top.
I
because
just,
otherwise, so
but to be clear, they're required to pave there.
Yes.
that's correct, curb to curb.
thank you.
Excuse me, Mayor, I also see another hand up. Paul, please state your full name and address into the record, then please proceed with your comment or question.
Paul Stevens, 39 Quarry. Good evening, everybody. Looking forward to next Thursday's meeting on the 25th. The bond ordinance, what will be included in that bond ordinance that you're going to present that night? I mean, there've been a number of things that have talked about in terms of what all was going into, quote, the Clausen purchase. I was just curious what to expect.
Certainly the full cost for the acquisition of the property will be included. Everything else is still in draft.
Such as moving the police station up to the house on the Clausen project?
There are multiple options for some version of a full some site changes, some there are a myriad of potential options. We have not sent around a draft ordinance, so I can't answer what's in the draft ordinance as it's not written.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if there are no other questions or comments from the council, hearing none, can I get a motion to close? I'm sorry, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Oh, so moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All right, thank you everybody for your time.
Good night.
Hi, everybody.
Night.
Tina, it's all you from here on out.